Align your bodies. We all have four bodies. You got the physical, you got the emotional, okay? You have the mental, okay? And then you also mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical. Those are your four. Mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical. You have to align all four of those bodies up. Let me give you an example. You might be spiritually healthy but physically unhealthy. If you're spiritually healthy and physically unhealthy, then your spirituality can only go but so far. Because as all the great master teachers taught, that if the body is not healthy, it's going to be difficult for the mind to be at peace. Anybody who's infected with an illness, their mind is not at peace. It's very difficult to put it at peace. So when we talk about being spiritual, you can't just live in your mind. You have to understand that there's a relationship between the spirit and the body planes. And if one of them isn't healthy, it's automatically going to affect the other. Just like if you're healthy physically, but you're not healthy spiritually. You got a lot of folk who are super athletes. They run every morning. They do their push-ups. Physically, they appear in perfect health. But what they fail to realize is that those negative thoughts that they keep on feeding themselves will crystallize into not bodily manifestations. And this is how you get folk who never had a piece of meat in their life, but they still suffer from high blood pressure. How did that happen? Okay? Drunk alkaline water all their life. Okay, but now they got cancer. How is that when there's no physical evidence as to why you have this malady? A lot of it has to do with the spiritual intoxication that manifests within the body. Remember, every major organ in the body is attached to a particular emotion. So whenever you experience that emotion, it is actually lodged in that particular part of the body. So when you get cancer, when you get diabetes, okay, when epilepsy develops within the brain, it's normally because of a spiritual imbalance or the stoppage of energy. The stoppage of energy. And when you hold on to grudges, you actually stop the energy of life from cycling in. See, pain is weakness leaving the body. But many of us like to hold on to that weakness because we identify with it. So we want to hold it. We don't want to let it go. And some of us carry it around 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And whenever you're holding a grudge, you tend to age about 5 times faster. So you'll see that you'll start to look older than what you should look, because you're not only living for yourself, you're living for your unhealthy pain body as well. So you want to do an assessment of yourself. Where are you mentally? By mental, we're talking about your thoughts, your cognitions, your process of interpreting your experience. That's your mental. Then we got to talk about the spiritual, your connection to the universe, the supreme source, your own internal soul. Where are you on that level? Then we got to talk about the emotional, the way in which you regulate your feelings, your emotional reactions to the things that happen to you in life. And then we got to talk about the physical, your health, what you eat, how you breathe, and your lifestyle. Lifestyle is important too. Why? Because no matter how healthy you may eat, no matter how spiritual you may be, if you don't give the spirit and the mind time to cleanse and recoup itself, it'll break down. For example, right now, a lot of black women, more than in any time in our history, are being admitted involuntary commissions for nervous breakdowns. A lot of sisters are going to the hospitals for nervous breakdowns because a lot of us believe that to be strong women or strong men, we should never have to take a break and give our bodies and our minds times to energize, that we should be able to keep on going. But your brain isn't made like that. See, when you talk about black women or black men 75 to 100 years ago, you have to remember they existed within a certain religious or spiritual milieu. So even though they worked a lot, they also had a lot of spiritual work going on at the same time. We don't have that. So it's important that you don't overload your brain, because when you overload the brain, it will just shut down on you. And that's what you call a nervous breakdown. Folks who are walking around on the street out of their minds, that's called brain overload. Just like you overload a computer, you can overload the brain. And one of the things we have to start practicing more is what I call spiritual indifference. Spiritual indifference. Some of us have not perfected the art of ignoring things that don't matter. Some of us choose to react emotionally to everything that come our way. You don't have to react to everything that comes your way. Pick and choose what gets your spiritual attention. Pick and choose what gets your mental attention. Pick and choose what gets your emotional attention. For example, I hear a lot of black folks say, well, you know, I'm working on a job with a bunch of Europeans, and they are stressing me out. Well, automatically, we made an interpretive mistake there, because nobody can stress you out. Stress is the result of your interpretation of the experience. The white man doesn't own the interpretation, you do. So if you're getting stressed out, it's because you're giving them the power to stress you. At the end of the day, you make the final decision. Very important we understand that. See, we get in the habit of saying, he made me angry, she made me angry, that made me sad. Nobody can give you any emotional state. Nobody can. You choose them yourself, consciously or unconsciously. You interpreted the event in such a way that your mind had no choice but to become upset. See, all of us live our lives based on a program. And for many of us, that program was put into our minds by our parents, by our extended family, and by the society. And based on the program that you're operating your life on, some of you are destined to be depressed, destined to be anxious, destined to be alcoholic, because the way in which you interpret your world always brings about a negative reaction. Do y'all see that? Two people with the same experience could come out of it two totally different ways. Two totally different ways. Two people get laid off, two different reactions. Two people get disrespected in public, two totally different reactions. You have to become more proactive in dealing with situations and not reactive. Save your emotions for when you need them. Emotions can do just as much good as they can do just as much damage. And too many of us are reacting too much to emotion. Whenever you react, your body automatically releases cortisol, adrenaline, which works against the immune system. People who are emotionally unhealthy also tend to be physically unhealthy. Why? Because the emotions release toxins into your bloodstream that beat down your organs. So it is almost impossible to be physically healthy and emotionally unhealthy. One is going to destroy the other. And what we need is a balance in both of them. Next slide. Check your social network. Too many of us are hanging with people who are no good. Too many of us, because we don't like being alone, would rather hang with bad friends than no friends. Okay? Bad friends than no friends. Okay, I get folk who tell me, well, I know he don't really like me, but we grew up together, you know, and that's just how it's going to be. You know, and you knew the whole time that they were not a friend, but a friend in me. Okay, an enemy in a friend's disguise. It is better to be by yourself than to be with people who don't mean you well. Because when you're around people who you're not comfortable with, and when you're not around people who you cannot trust, your suspicion is heightened. And suspicion is a form of stress. And whenever you're always being stressed out like that, the mind begins working against itself. And it never gets to take a break. See, every organ in the body is supposed to take a break. But the one that doesn't is the mind. The mind never takes a break. It runs and it runs and it runs and it runs. And most of it isn't even being ran by you. It's being ran by everybody but you. So what we have to do is retake control over our thought process to improve the way that we're living our lives. Next one. Learn to love solitude. If you can't be by yourself, you won't be able to be at peace with nobody else. And too many of us don't like being alone. We always have to have somebody else with us, whether it's a significant other, whether it's a brother, sister, girlfriend, mom, dad. I always look in therapy for folks to spend time with themselves. How much do you spend time with yourself? Well, I don't have time. No, that's a cop-out. That's the not. Why are you not spending time with yourself? And the reason we don't spend time with ourselves is because when you're by yourself, your subconscious automatically brings to consciousness all those unfinished tasks that you had in life. People you should have got rid of, goals you should have accomplished, certain objectives that you never met. And because a lot of us find it painful to analyze our lives and where we've been, we would rather shut that out. And the best way to shut off the unconscious from reminding us of our shortcomings is to get somebody else to distract us. So when you find people who just got to be busy all the time, I mean every day, every hour, they either sleep or they busy. They never at peace and by themselves. That's because there's no internal peace. And these are the type of people who do what? Rush into a relationship looking for somebody to take their mind off of themselves. And when you're no longer sufficient to distract Umar from Umar, I dump you and pick up somebody else who I think could do the job better. So you see, the relationship wasn't even based on you at all. It was based on my hidden agendas, my psychological hidden agendas. And all of us have hidden agendas. You got to know what they are so you can control them without them controlling you. Very important we understand that. Next slide. You have to be by yourself. I don't care if it's an hour. I don't care if it's 30 minutes. I don't care if it's a walk during lunchtime. But it is absolutely necessary for the spirit and the mind and the body and the emotional body, those four bodies, to realign. And they do that through silence. When your mind stops activating, that's when God consciousness comes in. But most of the time, God consciousness can't come in because we're constantly distracting it with the thunder of our thoughts. So you got all this internal noise going on. So how can the subtle voice of the universe communicate to you and your chakra bodies when the mind is always agitated? So somebody who's always agitated can never be at peace.